Today we're going to figure out how do we solve word problems that involve area and setting up quadratic equations. So because these are area word problems, instead of a let statement, I'm going to be drawing a picture for each of these. And I believe they're all rectangles. So we need to know that the area of a rectangle is equal to length times width. I don't know why. Okay. So for number one, I'm going to draw the rectangle. A rectangle has an area of 24 square units. The width is 5 units less than the length. So it says length last. So really, technically, it doesn't matter which dimension you consider to be the length, whether it's the longer one or the shorter one. Here they're saying that the width is 5 units less, so I know that the length is the longer one, and then the width is 5 units less than that, so I'll do x minus 5. What is the length in units of the rectangle? So they're asking for the length. So you need to remember that area is equal to the length times the width. So in this case, the length times the width would be written like this: x parentheses x minus 5 equals 24. So the diagram is in lieu of the let statement. Then we have the equation. Next will be solution. So I'm going to distribute x squared minus 5x. The next step, you could subtract 24 on each side, or right now I could just subtract it from both sides and know that I have my equation set equal to 0. So in a simple one like this, I could do the distributing and subtracting 24 from both sides in the same step. Now I'm going to use add multiply to write the trinomial in factor form. So x times x for the x squared. We have to find two numbers that multiply to 24, add to negative 5. So 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, 4 times 6. It has to multiply to negative 24, so one of the numbers is going to be negative. And I need them to add to a negative 5, so the bigger number is going to be negative. And I found my pair of numbers. 3 times negative 8 is equal to negative 24. 3 plus negative 8 is equal to negative 5. So here's my factors: x plus 3 times x minus 8. And then I could set each factor equal to 0, which then allows me to solve and get that x is equal to negative 3 and x is equal to 8. And then to answer the question and find the length, we cannot have a negative length. So cannot have a negative length. So the answer is just 8. If they asked for the width too, I'd have to do 8 minus 5 to get the 3, but they just asked for the length. Final answer done. Number 2 is a rectangular soccer field, so similar setup. I'm going to draw the rectangle. It gives you the area, 6,000 square yards. The soccer field must be 40 yards longer than its width. So this time I'm going to put the x here, the width. 40 yards longer, that is x plus 40. So there's my length and my width. For my let statement, I'm using the diagram. Then I'm going to multiply length times width. So I'm going to put the single term in front, the binomial in parentheses equals 6,000. So I'm now going to solve the equation. Distribute the x. I get x squared plus 40x. In the same step, I could subtract 6,000 from both sides. If you want to keep it two separate steps, go ahead. And this is a trinomial with a leading coefficient of 1, so we're going to do add multiply. But now when you're multiplying to negative 6,000, that is creating a much more difficult list of factors. So I'm definitely going to use the calculator to generate this list. I'm going to put in 6,000, actually it's negative 6,000, negative 6,000 divided by x, and I'm going to generate a table of values. Let's do negative 200 to 200. Will it let me do that much? No. So let's do negative 100 to 100, and we'll scroll that. Okay, we need it to multiply to a positive 40. Sorry, add to a positive 40. So all these give us numbers that multiply. I'm scrolling and looking at the integer ones to see if I find a pair that add to 40 also. So that very first combo, negative 100 times 60, that multiplies to negative 6,000, but that would add to a negative 40. So already know what my combo would be. The very last, the positive 100 and negative 60, that'll add to a positive 40. So with these word problems, sometimes the hardest part is factoring because the numbers get a little bigger. So that was the combo, x plus 100, x minus 40. Sorry, 60. Oh, yoy. X minus 60. So that multiplies to negative 600. A lot of times when you have that double zero, this, 100 is going to be a factor. The triple zero, 1,000 is going to be a factor. So there's my factored version. Set each factor equal to 0. And I get x equals negative 100 and x equals positive 60. So again, since we have dimensions here, length and width, reject, you could write specifically cannot have a negative width, or I'm going to just write cannot have a negative dimension, which would cover length or width, which means that x equals 6 is the only x value. Determine algebraically the dimensions, so you need both. So this dimension that was notated with x is 60, and this one is 60 plus 40, which is the 100. So your answer is 60 and 100. So be careful if they ask for dimensions. They want both the length and the width. If they ask for one specifically, then give that one. And lastly, another rectangle. Jack is building a rectangular dog pen that he wishes to enclose. So we will draw this rectangular dog pen. The width of the pen is 2 yards less than the length. So here I'm going to put the length on the longer one as x. The width is 2 yards less than that. So that's x minus 2. So don't forget when it says 2 yards less than the length that you're going to reverse the order and put the x minus 2. If it was 2 yards longer than the width, I would still write x then the plus 2 after. Here the area is smaller, is 15 square yards, so that's easier for the arithmetic part. X times x minus 2 equals 15. And now the solution, I'll distribute and get x squared minus 2x. Subtract 15 from both sides. I've been doing in the same step. Factor. We have a trinomial with the leading coefficient of 1, so I'm going to do AM. This time, much easier number. 15 is 1 times 15, 3 times 5. It's negative 15, so one column is going to be negative. Since it has to add to a negative 2, I'm going to make the bigger number negative, and it's minus 5 and x plus 3. Didn't matter if I put the plus 3 first. I don't know why I reversed it. Set both factors equal to 0. Solve both the equations. Again, since this is asking for a dimension, reject, because cannot have a negative dimension. There were some word problems from last week where there were more than one answer because it could have been positive or negative. Reject because cannot have a negative dimension. And what did they ask for? How many yards of fencing would need to be completely enclosing the pen? So they're not asking for the dimensions. They're asking how much fencing to go all the way around the pen. So this side here would have 5 yards. So would this side. This side would have 5 minus 2, or 3 yards, and so would this. So I'm going to have to add the 3, the 3, the 5, and the 5 to get how much fencing, which is the perimeter. So that's going to be 5 plus 5 plus 3 plus 3, which is 16 as your final answer. So that's how they made this one a little trickier. Instead of asking for one dimension, they're asking how much fencing to go around the entire pen.